Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Rise and Recreate podcast. This is a space for people who are learning that they don't have to fit into a box to be successful. I'm your host, Rachel Shaney, and today's guest is Zoe, a retreat host, business coach, podcast host of The Multifaceted Woman, and a free-spirited entrepreneur who is passionate about helping women embrace all the parts of themselves. For years, Zoe felt like she was too much, which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. But when she stopped trying to shrink herself and started her own multi-dimensional nature, everything began to change. Her business grew, her confidence deepened, and she finally felt at home in who she was. So today we are going to talk about the power of embracing your full range instead of making yourself wrong for it. Zoe, I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. And I would love for you to just introduce yourself and tell people about where it is you are currently in life.
Amazing. Thanks for having me on, Rachel. I'm so excited to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Zoe. As Rachel said in my introduction, I wear many hats, as I'm sure a lot of us do. I'm a retreat host, a podcast host, a business coach, and now I am also a preschool teacher, which has been a new development over the last couple months. So, as you can tell, I am an example of a multifaceted woman. And that's really what I'm passionate about talking about and being an example for other women and people in general, but specifically women who feel like I'm too much, I'm too all over the place, like I need to pick a lane, stick with it. I'm too fill in the blank, right? We all have that story, whatever it is. And yeah, so I am in a really beautiful place in my life where I feel like for the first time ever in almost 30 years of being on this earth, I feel like I am giving myself permission to be expressed in all of my passions, all of my talents, all of my interests, and I'm not feeling bad about it. For so long in my life, I felt like I was wrong for not being able to pick a lane, wrong for not being able to niche down in my business, wrong for having too many interests. Like there was this story about being just too much that was an undercurrent in everything, every moment in my life, every relationship, everything. And I feel like over the past few years, I've finally started to, just own that about myself that I am multidimensional, I am multi-talented, I am multi-passionate. And when I did that, everything started to click into place in the most beautiful way, which I'm sure we can get into more. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and my story. So
I love that. Thank you. Real quick, I'm curious, are you into human design? And if you are, do you know what your design is?
yes, I'm not like an expert, but I know a little bit about human design, and I'm actually a generator, but I give big Manny Gen vibes. I've always been told that. So yeah, I'm a very multifaceted generator, but I really resonate with the idea of needing to live by what lights me up. And what lights me up is having my hands in a lot of different pots. So
Definitely. Yeah. I feel I'm a Manny Gen and I also am very all over the place. So I was curious, but I would love for you to take us back to a time when you were a bit overwhelmed by this, too muchness for those of you listening on Spotify or not video, air quotes there, too muchness. And, what did that look like back then when you maybe weren't as confident in who you are today?
mm. Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for the last decade. I say I've been like a serial entrepreneur because I've kind of done everything under the sun. I'm an artist, so I sold my artwork for a while. I did intuitive readings for a while because I'm highly intuitive. I've done retreats, I've done programs. I've always been an entrepreneur, and for a while, for most of my 20s, I was living in this belief that every time I would switch lanes or start a new project or start to go down a new path, that I was giving up, I was quitting, I was doing something wrong. I was making myself wrong for it. And it bled into my confidence in such a deep way because it was part of my self-identity that I was too much, that I was a quitter, that I gave up, when really none of this was true. And there was actually a beautiful current of similar interests and passions, and like it all weaved together into this beautiful tapestry that's just me, that's just Zoe. But yeah, I couldn't see it at the time. And to be honest too, this goes back, like this belief of being too much probably goes back to when I was a child. Um, just feeling like you're too sensitive, right? You're too emotional, you're too uh whatever. I always felt like I was too much. I resonated more with being too much than not enough. And I think we all have these different stories that can play out in our life, but it was always like, I'm too much. And so, yeah, that played out into my entrepreneurial career where I would kind of self-sabotage because every time I would get inspired to start a new project, launch a new program, host a new retreat, it was like this voice in the back of my head was, you're doing it again, you're doing something bad, you're doing something wrong. And yeah, when I finally something clicked in my brain and I saw it differently, it was like, oh, this is actually such a beautiful, epic, amazing thing about myself that I get to love and honor and embrace. So
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that there was this undercurrent, this belief of every time you would switch that you were wrong. And a lot of times it is the beliefs that we have that hold ourselves back. And so I would love to hear a bit about your journey of maybe shifting that belief and what that took for you and how that started to change.
Yeah. I think it was actually having it reflected back to me, from a woman that I love and trust and appreciate, and her saying, like, that is actually my favorite thing about you, Zoe. And like seeing yourself through another's eyes, I think can be really, really powerful. So it was that moment with a sister when she was like, I love this about you. Wait, why would you ever want to change this? This is my favorite thing about you. You're always full of surprises and you have all these different layers and dimensions. And that's my favorite part about you, Zoe. And it was like that moment where I saw myself through another's eyes that I was able to, I think, soften that voice of criticism that can be so loud for us. And from there, it was just a trickle effect of, okay, can I wake up today and own this about myself just like 1% more? And then the next day, just 1% more. So it wasn't like an overnight, like all of a sudden I wake up and I'm just done with that belief. To be honest, it still rears its head, like recently I've had this whole life realization shift that, oh my gosh, I love my business. I love coaching. I love hosting retreats. I love everything that I'm doing. And there's this deep calling and this deep need of mine to work with children that's not being fulfilled. And so my capacity to own my multifaceted nature and my multidimensionality is being stretched to another comfort zone right now in this season of life. And so I'm kind of experiencing some of those old stories around being too much. And so I think the reason I share this is because it's not like we wake up one day and it's just like poof, it's gone. It's a practice of choosing the story that empowers us, seeing ourselves in a loving light, seeing our brilliance, and then just practicing it on a daily and knowing that some seasons it's going to feel a little bit trickier than others. So, yeah.
I think pretty much everybody listening can probably relate to that of they are their own worst critic. And sometimes the harshest judgment comes from ourselves, right? Like on one hand, you can look at it like, oh, I own a business. I shouldn't have to also be doing this job with children. However, when you're really tuned in to who you are, you're like, but wait a second, I have this very deep desire to work with children right now. Why can't these two things coexist? They absolutely can. And a lot of times to get ourselves out of a funk is just to switch our perception and look at things a little different. And so I know you mentioned hosting retreats. And I know a lot of women listening to this either have hosted retreats or maybe that's a dream of theirs that they would like to do that. And I would love for you to tell us a bit about how you got into that and what that journey has looked like for you.
Yeah. Um, so funny enough, it actually started with children. Working with children has been a thread, like the most consistent thread, I would say, throughout my career and my journey. But it started with hosting these self-love and body image and empowerment workshops for young girls. When I was 18, 19, when I was a lot younger, I struggled with a bit of a disordered eating patterns, you could say. I was never diagnosed, but I really struggled with body image and disordered eating and just not loving myself and not taking care of myself. And that translated into me partnering with a nonprofit when I was 18, 19, and hosting these workshops to help young girls talk about body image and the media and perfectionism and all these standards that are put on young girls and women in society. And so it started with that. And through that, I realized, wow, I love to host. I love to create an event, hold space for people in person, make it happen, and then do it again. Like I love hosting. So that's how it started. And then once I got into my 20s, I became certified as a yoga instructor and started hosting yoga retreats for women, which then eventually turned into my retreats now, which are we do yoga at some of them, yes, but they're very multifaceted. They're very each one's different. Like for example, not last year, just this past April in Sedona, I led a inner child retreat where we did all the inner child stuff like sparkly dress up dance parties and braiding each other's hair and having picnics and swimming in the river with unicorn floaties, like full on inner child esque party. And then this fall, in October, I'm leading a retreat in Park City, Utah, where it's more like cozy mountain vibes. We're going to go on hikes and go to the spa and sit in the hot tub. And so we still do yoga sometimes at the retreats, but it's been cool to see how my events even have taken on like a multifaceted nature as I've realized like I can just come up with these different themes and create an idea and then bring it to life, and it doesn't always have to make sense to everybody, and one event can be totally different than the next, and I can express myself freely in this way, instead of every retreat just having to be like yoga and wellness, you know? So there's been a freedom, a free spirit energy that has, I think, awoken in my business, in my offers, in my retreats, once I've given myself permission to do that on like an individual level. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I got into it.
So speaking of giving yourself permission, right? Like, and how you said it keeps popping up. It's not like you give yourself permission. You're like, I'm just going to be this free spirited woman, multifaceted, and forever I will be this way. And this will no longer cause problems in my life. Like shit still pops up. And so for the woman who can see herself there and she's like, I resonate with this so deeply. I am multifaceted, but I have also maybe put myself in a box. What advice would you give her for giving herself that permission?
Mm. It sounds kind of like intense, or yeah, it sounds intense, but that's my personality is I'm just like, let's get to the root of it. Like the root of it is, are you going to regret living a life that is boxed in, that is right, quote unquote, right, that is approved by other people, that is understood when you are sitting on your deathbed, laying on your deathbed one day, which we will all be at that place one day, no matter what? Are you going to look back and feel proud, truly, truly proud of the life that you lived? Or are you going to feel like, man, I really held back. I really, stayed with the status quo. I really tipped around other people to make sure they were comfortable. Or are you going to look back and be like, I lived my life so fully expressed. I did what I want. I went for it. I took a risk. I let myself be creative. I let all sides of myself be expressed. It sounds intense, but that's really what helps me, and that's the advice I would give you is to, like, get really real with the reality of life, which is that we have a finite time on this earth, and we live on a rock that's floating through space, and nothing's really that serious when you think about it. But you have, like, this much time, like, I just snapped my fingers if you're not watching the video. You have, like, this much time to be you and live this life. So what do you wanna do with it? And are you making 90-year-old you proud? Are you going to regret not fully expressing yourself? And right? So yeah, it's intense, but I think that sometimes going to those intense places are what we need to wake up and stop people pleasing.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I do old lady in the rocking chair. So I just imagine myself in my like 90s sitting on a porch, rocking away, thinking back on my life. And I'm like, did I do it right? Did I do what I wanted to do? However, sometimes, right? Like people can do that. They can take themselves there. They can identify what it is they want to do. And I think sometimes they can't overcome the fear that comes with that of like, what if I do this and I fail? What if I try this and I break myself financially? So, first of all, have you experienced that? I know I have. And if so, how did you overcome that, or what advice would you give to people who are really like head butting with their fear?
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that fear is not bad. It's not the enemy. You don't have to make it go away. You're never going to make it go away. It's there for a purpose. It's there to keep you safe. It's good that we have the capacity to be afraid because there are certain scenarios in life where our fear serves us to keep us safe. But yeah, I think the key is not pushing it down and being like, that's bad. I shouldn't be afraid. I should just be this fearless, like, go getter. Like, sit with the fear, ask it questions. What are you trying to tell me? Is there wisdom here? Right? Or is this truly just fear for fear's sake? For
Mhm.
example, with hosting retreats and like getting yourself in a financial ruin because of poor choices hosting a retreat, like that's an example where the fear has a purpose. It doesn't mean you don't do it, but research, right? Learn, make choices that feel right in your body. Don't spend $10,000 on a retreat venue and have no idea what you're doing and have no backup plan. Like, there's times to just be, I don't even want to say smart because that's not the word I'm looking for, but mindful, intentional, right? It's not about just being reckless. It's about taking those more calculated, intentional risks and honoring your fear. It's trying to keep you safe. And like everything in life, I think it's a balance. Take the risk, host the retreat, try something new, and think it through, right? Be mindful going into it. Think about, how to make it profitable, how to make it successful. And also, if it's not, the world doesn't end, right? I have hosted events, retreats, workshops where I had to cancel it because nobody signs up. Like, I have failed so many times. The sky didn't fall. But I am also grateful that I went into it mindfully and intentionally, and I took my time. And yeah, so I think it's a balance.
Mm. Thank you for
Thank you
bringing up
for
the
bringing up
failure
the
part because a lot of times that's what people are really afraid of, right?
afraid of,
They're
right? They're
afraid
afraid
of
of
seeing themselves fail through others' eyes.
size.
And
And
so
so
through this journey, I would just like to know what kept you going through the failures. Was it a belief that you like, did you really have a strong belief of I can do this? And so it didn't matter how many times you failed because you had a belief, or was there something else behind it that kept you going?
mm, I think it's I think you have to fall in love with the process and enjoy the process. It sounds so cliche and cheesy, but it's true. And I think that's what kept me going is I love a good challenge. Like if I do something and it doesn't work out, nobody signs up, it actually just like puts fire under my ass to like try again and make it happen next time. So whatever part of you, and we're all different, but whatever part of you is in there that like loves to learn, loves a challenge, loves to get back up and try again. That resilience in you, that grit. We all have this part of ourselves where if we love to do something enough, we want to keep going. So I think it's calling on that part of yourself that enjoys the journey and enjoys the challenge of it. And also let yourself be sad for a bit. Many times I have, launches have flopped for a program. Nobody signed up for a workshop. I just let myself be sad for like a couple days. And then I find that resilient, grit filled part of me that's like, all right, let's try it again. Like let's see what happens this time. So tapping into that, however you can tap into that fire in you, um, that's the thing that separates people, I believe, that find quote unquote success, right? Or live out their dreams versus those that don't. It's literally just do you get back up and keep going when things go sideways, when things don't work. Um, I've also learned that chances are every time something doesn't work out, it is teaching you something that you absolutely needed to learn to get to where you want to be. It is teaching you something that people signing up, it going well, getting your way would never be able to teach you. And so can you also have like reverence and respect for that journey and like humble yourself to be like, okay, what am I learning here? Like why didn't this go well? Why did nobody sign up? That was a big thing for me is like, can I take my ego and like love her and be like, okay, Zoe, I know you have things to share. It's gonna work out, but why didn't it? And like just, kind of have that moment of open-minded learning and you will grow so much from that. So
Mm-hmm. Yes, find that resilience and treat it like an experiment. Like a failure is just data. It means nothing about you as a person. It doesn't. It's just, okay, this is what happened. Now I have this data. How can I do it differently instead of just banging my head against the wall and repeating the same thing over and over and over again? Because we all know that is not how you actually grow, change, and expand. You must try something different. And now you have data to try something different from. So
yep.
I think it sounds, with you being like multi-passionate and multifaceted, that you probably have a lot of ideas. And so how do you go from being overwhelmed with all of these ideas that you have to picking something and sticking with it?
Mm. Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that question. This was a big turning point in my journey. So there I often think that if something bothers us that like other people say about us, it's because there's a very small thread of truth that we don't want to look at within. And so when like back in the day, let's say when I would get so like, ugh, Zoe, you're such a quitter and you just switch your mind too much and you just jump from thing to thing. Like hindsight's 2020. Do I actually think that those things are true? No. But there was a thread of truth that I was so overwhelmed with all these ideas and all these dreams and all these visions that I kind of would jump ship before giving things ample time to land and root down. And so I am super passionate about helping entrepreneurs specifically build multifaceted businesses where they can host retreats and do this type of coaching and do this and do this and not be overwhelmed. And what I always say is you have to strike this balance between giving things time to grow, to expand, to grow roots, to feel stable. And then once that feels stable, right, once you're hosting retreats annually and you've got the flow down, then add on another offer, right? Explore another path, add it to the ecosystem the brand, whatever you want to call it, that is you. So I think it's really being mindful of like, okay, what are my top 3 to 5 passions? What are my top 3 to 5 gifts, talents, skills, things I want to offer? And then what, like 1 or 2 of those, do I really feel like now is the chapter to grow, to expand, to practice, to master, to get really freaking good at? Focus on those for a year, 2 years, right? And then add in a couple more. Anybody is going to burn out trying to host a retreat, have a new podcast, launch 3 programs, work a job, do this other thing. Like anybody would burn out and feel overwhelmed. So I think it's important when I speak about my business of having like this retreat business and the podcast, and I do online coaching, and now I'm a preschool teacher. That did not happen overnight. This is like over a decade of me mastering these different skills, learning these different skills, and then building into a sustainable flow with all of them. And so, yes, you can do it all, but you can't do it all at once. And trying to do it all at once will probably lead to burnout. So, picking, as I said, 1 to 2 things that feel right in your body to focus on right now. You're not saying no to the other things. You're not putting that part of you away. You are simply putting it on a shelf until you feel stable, secure, like your nervous system is regulated in the 1 or 2 things you're doing, and then add on something else. That is, I believe, how you build a multifaceted business and brand without burning out. I have done it both ways, and I highly recommend this way.
Hmm. Agreed. When you throw too much on the plate, it is very easy to become very overwhelmed.
Mhm.
I feel that. I would just like to add in that a lot of us multi-passionate people tend to just be very curious, and we're like, oh, this sounds interesting, so let me do it. And don't be deterred by that, because there have been so many little side paths that I have taken, and some were very expensive, like photography. If anybody listening is a photographer, I have thousands of dollars of photography equipment, but that led me to a dream job in Alaska that I would have never gotten if I didn't follow that little line of curiosity. And now I'm not doing that. And I have thousands of dollars of equipment that are just sitting on a shelf. And I actually caught myself the other day making myself feel a little guilty for that. And I'm like, you're doing nothing with this. Like, what are you doing? However, I had to remind myself that through that journey, I developed a skill that is with me forever. I can forever pick back up that camera and make money if I want to. And so, even if you don't see it in the moment, some of these little side paths and these side journeys of learning new skills that we have no idea how that's going to be related to anything in the future typically comes full circle. Have you experienced anything like that in your life?
Oh my gosh, 110%. Yes. And I feel like I'm actually in a season of life where I'm able to see clearly why I went down all those little side quests. Like it's all kind of clicking and coming together. And I'm like, oh, that and that supported this. And because I know how to do this, this is doing better. Like it's all kind of clicking. But if you're not in that season and you feel like you're just following these random little side quests, trust your curiosity. Trust your curiosity. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a balance of trust your curiosity and know when the most loving thing you can do for yourself is put your head down and focus on something. And
Mm,
it's not from this place of like, I have to focus because I'm bad, or I have to focus because I can't do these things, or those parts of me are wrong. But like, can you know when it's time to just, okay, for the next 6 months, my top priority is like building my podcast, or my top priority is building out this coaching program and running it with my whole heart. And I have all these other little interests, and I see them and I honor them, and I'm going to put a pin in them. And so I think it's like a dance of like learning when to follow those little curiosities and loving them, and again honoring them, but also knowing when it is the most helpful thing you can do for yourself and your nervous system to just focus on something for a time, right? Um, because you have time. Like yes, I know I just said life goes by in a blink because it does, but also you have time. You have time to do the things you love. And if you stress yourself out trying to do it all by next week, like you're not going to do any of it with the heart and the intention that I know you want to. So yeah, I really think it's a balance and it's not about getting it perfect. It's just self-awareness again and again, noticing when are you feeling burnt out? When are you feeling too spread thin? What do you actually feel like is in your capacity to take on in this season of life? And then slowly building from there. Um, and one day you'll look back and be like, "Oh, it did all click. It all made sense." So hopefully that makes sense.
Mhm. And sitting with yourself and maybe acknowledging what season of life you are in and really getting real with yourself of what is it that you do want to focus on out of the many, many things that you're passionate about. Which one would bring you the most joy in this particular moment? And speaking of time, it doesn't matter where you're at in life, how old or how young you are, throw those excuses right the fuck out of the window and just do it. Just go, because it does go both ways. On one hand, we do feel like we have all of this time to complete like our hopes and our dreams while we're on the planet. And then on the other hand, it's like this really does fly by. And next thing you know, you're old and thinking back, like, did I actually do all of the things I want to do? And so bringing in this focus, um, a lot of times it goes hand in hand with people who have a lot of energy and ideas and passions that it might be a bit harder for them to focus, to sit down and focus on one thing. And so what helped you along your journey to really make that time and dedicate to whatever it was that you were trying to grow in that season?
Mm. Yeah, so I'm I'm assuming a lot of people that listen to this podcast, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming a lot of your audience is probably entrepreneurial in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
I
true?
actually looked at like the statistics and it's mostly between like 25 and 45 women who, yes, like definitely tap into their intuition and their empathy and want to build something and have big hopes and dreams and probably have a
Love it.
lot of ideas.
Yeah. Okay, okay, perfect. Um, Something that has really helped me with focus is literally pretending, and this might sound silly, but it helps me. Literally pretending that when I sit down to do the thing, right? Let's say your goal is to create a podcast and get your first 20 episodes out in the next year. When you sit down to do your podcasting, literally pretend that there is a boss watching you. And I that might sound like, well, that's not very empowering, but it actually has been very empowering for me because I don't know if anyone out there can relate to this, but my feminine energy, she flows. She flows all over the place. She's like, "Ooh, this sparkly thing. Ooh, this sparkly thing. I'm not in the mood. I don't feel like it." And I love her, but a big part of my healing has been tapping into this masculine energy of like, just do it, just do the damn thing. You want to get to the goal, just sit down and do it. And you're going to feel so proud of yourself afterwards. So, whether you want to create an archetype within you that is this like kind of masculine boss, or literally pretend you're clocking in for your business, right? Or your dream, like you would a job, like I know you're not just going to not show up to a job that you get hired for. I know you're not like that if you're listening to this. And so, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to your dream? Oh, I don't feel like it. Oh, I slept in. Oh, well, like stop making excuses and just sit down and do it. So, however, you can create some type of like external sense of healthy pressure and healthy accountability. It could even be an accountability friend, or some type of like masculine energy that is like just sit down and do the thing. That has been so healing for me, and that's when I actually started to see my business be successful because I am so naturally intuitive and emotional and in my feelings, and I'm good at that. But the devotion and the consistency and the follow through was not my strong point for a long time until I was able to make this switch of like, I'm going to clock in for my dream the same way I would clock in for a job because it matters that much. And so whatever you have to do to create that energy, that's what helps me.
Yes,
Yes,
clock in for our dreams. So, in honor of being fully transparent, some days you just don't want to do shit. And there was a part of me today that was so tired and sitting on my couch, and it's super smoky here. Like, there's a lot of fires and it's so smoky, and my eyes hurt, and I didn't feel good. And I was like, I don't want to do the podcast today. That little part
Mhm.
inside of me. But then I tapped into, okay, every single
Every
time I
single
have a
time.
conversation with somebody, it lights me up. I know how good I feel after these conversations. And so, in order to shift out of that energy of, I don't wanna, I put on my headphones, I sat down, I did some breathing. To some meditation music. And then I went and dressed up. And that's what really helps me. So for me, clocking in for my business means putting on a cute hat or some cute earrings and a shirt that I feel good in. And that really, really, really has helped me show up with consistency. So I feel you. Identify something that, like, it's like you're switching out of your life mode and into like your dream mode of, this is what I really want to build. So how do I switch into that energy and find what works for you? For me,
Yes.
it's pretty earrings and a hat.
I love it. By the way, I can't believe I didn't ask this, but where do you live?
So I'm in Leadville, Colorado, so up at
Oh,
10,000 feet in the mountains, and it is incredibly wonderful. And typically, how I shift my energy state is I go for a walk, but it is like you can barely see the mountains here. It's so smoky. Where are you at?
I'm in Utah and it's also incredibly smoky. I'm in Salt Lake City. And to be honest, I had kind of a similar I was working at the preschool this morning. I was tired. There was a part of me that was like, just reschedule the podcast. But then there was this wiser part of me that was like, okay, Zoe, there is a time and a place to reschedule. When I truly feel like it is deep out of alignment to show up, right? I'd be hurting my body. I'm like, I'm sick. I'm unwell. If I'm on my period, like I will reschedule. But I was like, you have the capacity. You're just feeling a little like uninspired, a little tired. And I connected to future me. And I was like, future me is going to be so glad that I showed up, did what I signed up for, had an amazing conversation. I'm probably going to leave feeling more energized, right? More just in my zone, in my power. And so that's so interesting. We both had that moment of like, but I don't want to do it. And then like, yeah, whatever you want to call it, the boss within, the masculine, the daddy was like, no, sit down, do the damn podcast because your dreams matter. And I'm glad I showed up. Like, this has been wonderful. So,
Same. And I would like to really highlight that there is a big difference between being physically unwell or something really coming up where you physically would be like, this is actually going to completely drain me if I show up for this. 1000% reschedule, trust your body. However, you can tell the difference between that and the little toddler throwing a tantrum inside of you that just says, I don't want to. And there's a big difference. And for me, it was just straight. I was comfortable on the couch. I didn't want to. That is not a good enough reason to not show up. And really tapping back into, past experiences of, I know when I show up for myself and I push through that little bit of resistance, I always come out feeling a lot better and more energized. And so look at all parts of your life where you do that. I think a lot of us can relate to doing that when it comes to showing up for our health. Like, do I want to get up and do an exercise or do I want to eat ice cream on the couch? Well, so I think this is a very important part to bring into the conversation, actually, is bringing up little tips and tricks we do to push ourselves out of that little bit of resistance. And what do you do when that resistance does come up, particularly when you're starting to lead larger events? I feel like that probably comes up in a bit more of an intense way sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. There have been for sure moments where I'm like, I think back to the first few retreats I hosted a few days prior, or even like the morning of, I'd be like, why did I do this? like, I don't want to go hold space. Like I'm feeling shy. I'm feeling tired. Something could be so aligned and you can be so excited about it. And then when it comes time to actually do it, all the self-sabotage, all the stuff will come up. I connecting to my future self, even though I just said that, I think that's a big one. I just kind of connect to myself after I do the thing or in a year, and I'm just so glad that I did it. And this also might sound overly simple, but I quite literally just force my body to move. Like, if I sit there and think, I don't want to get up, I don't want to do the podcast, I don't want to post, I don't want to blah, blah, blah. Like, if I literally just, this might sound overly simple. I don't know. This is just how my brain works. I like just move a limb, just move a limb, sit up, take a step, and just get your body in motion and kind of just force yourself to do it, honestly. And then once you're in the flow, it's going to feel so good. But it's like how getting to the appointment, getting to the gym, getting to wherever you're going is always the hardest. And then once you're there, you get in a flow. Um, and again, finding that part within you that has a fire for her dreams, that wants to make cool shit happen, that wants to have a successful business, that wants to have a big podcast, that fire within you, whatever you need to do to tap into that within you, connect with that part of you often, and that will be the thing that gets you up and gets you going when you feel unmotivated.
Hmm. I really love this idea of tapping into our future selves, though. There's a few very successful women that I follow online that I have heard say multiple times, wow, I look back and I really thank that 20-something-year-old me who really went for it. And so it's such a fun idea and a fun topic of like, okay, let me tap into who I am in 2, 3, 4, 5 years and look back and think of how proud she will be of me right now in this moment for going for it. Because I don't know what kind of foundation, I don't know what path I'm actually creating for her, but I have a feeling that if I complete this one thing, it's taking a step in the right direction. And so just how we can look back, like we mentioned a few times, like looking back on our past and seeing how all of the threads have connected. That's a very fun thing to do. Like look at where you are today and really look back and look for those paths and those threads of like, wow, I definitely see how that led me to this, led me to this. And so we can do the same thing looking forward. Like, okay, if I do this now, I can totally see how this could potentially lead me to where I'm desiring to go at this moment. And so I think too, it's really important to sit with ourselves and think about where we're going and what did that look like for you, when you had all of these ideas and you sat down and you're like, okay, where do I want to be? Like, what did that look like sitting with yourself? Because sometimes that can be very fucking confronting.
For sure. For me, it's always been more clear how I want to feel than anything else. Um, Speaking of human design, in human design, I'm a non-specific manifester. So I don't actually manifest well through hyper specific visions. It stresses me out to know all those
Same.
details. Um, I'm like, I don't know, but I know how I want to feel in my life. And so following that inner compass of, is this activity, this job, this business goal, this podcast interview, this project, whatever, bringing me closer to that feeling? Is it
Mm,
creating that feeling in my life in some way? And I really go by how things make me feel emotionally. Um, does it make me feel peaceful? Does it make me feel purposeful? Does it make me feel excited and joyful? And I use that as my compass, and then I let the universe put together the specifics of what my life looks like and where I'm located and all those little things. So yeah, I think if you're anything like me, tapping into what do I want my life to feel like? And then how can I create that feeling today through the things I'm choosing to do, through the avenues I'm choosing to spend my time in, through the people I'm choosing to spend my time with. Um, and as long as you're in alignment with the way you want life to feel, I think the details of exactly what it's all going to look like and exactly what the dream business will look like and exactly what the dream house will look like and exactly, all that stuff. I think it finds its way. I don't think that's necessarily your job to micromanage. Um, how do you want to feel in your life? And then how can you start to create that with what you have and where you're at today?
And it's through tapping into those feelings that you want to feel every day that builds this compound effect. And that, like, in my opinion, completely just like builds my energy. And that's what makes me magnetic. And that's what magnetizes the situations to me that will expand that feeling even more. I I had the biggest sigh of relief when I learned about the specific and non-specific manifesting types in human design, because I was like, I don't know how these people could think of like the exact kind of house they want to live in and where they want to live. I don't know. I just want it to be like pretty and I want it to feel like this. And so when I learned that, it was a huge sigh of relief of you don't have to necessarily be super, super specific in what you want in order to get what you want. And sometimes you don't really know what it is that you want. You do just know how you want to feel. And then it's kind of fun to just let the path unfold and see where you land. It has taken me all over the country, all over the world. I have landed in some places that I probably would have never even dreamt up. I wouldn't have even known to dream them up myself. So that is such a beautiful thing to bring into this conversation. And so with our time left, I would love for you to just speak whatever is on your heart. If there is anything else you wanted to bring to this conversation, if there's anything you wanted to let people know, if there was anything else that you're like, oh, wait, I definitely struggled with this and this is how I overcame it, whatever wants to come out right now, I'd just like to give you like free space.
Thank you. I think the last thing I want to say is to just trust that the desires on your heart for the life you want to live, the business you want to have, the places you want to go, the way you want to feel, trust that the desires that are in your heart that won't leave you alone, the ones that like come back again and again, man, I really want to do that. Man, I really, or you see someone else doing it and it's like, oh, I want that, right? Trust that those desires are in your heart for a reason. I truly believe we all have a very specific and unique blueprint and dharma on the planet. And so the desires that are in your heart are there for a reason. They're meant to be fulfilled. They're meant to be acted upon. They're meant to be, moved towards essentially on a daily basis. And just trust yourself. Like it sounds so, we hear it all the time, trust yourself, but actually stop making yourself wrong for being how you are. Stop making yourself wrong for liking the things you like, right?
Mm-hmm.
For wanting the things you want, for operating the way you operate, and just trust yourself. And if you've never seen someone create what you want to create, all the better. It means you're meant to create it. And if you have seen people create what you want to create, great. You're being shown it's possible. Like just trust yourself and trust your path as much as you can every day. And allow life to surprise you. Like that has been the biggest lesson for me lately that I've been integrating is when you think you have it all figured out, life sometimes has a way of being like, just kidding. There's this total curveball you didn't see coming. And so let life lead you and show you the way and be open to the changes and the twists and turns in the journey. And try not to get too attached to like it has to turn out just this way because if you actually stop and like listen, life will sometimes completely change the game for you, and, it's beautiful to allow that, so
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. You really don't know what is going to happen day to day. We have ideas, but things can always just take a turn at any moment. And a belief that I have like just deeply rooted inside of my being is everything is always working out for me. And even through the hard times and through the turns that I'm like, this is not what I really wanted. I just know that on the other side, it's all happening for a reason and it all truly is working out for me. And same thing, looking in my past, my many, many years of being on this earth, I have a lot of proof that it is always working out for me, even when it does feel very like awful in the moment, you know?
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So that was a beautiful way. I think a beautiful message to leave everyone with is just it's always working out for me and really trusting that, trusting life, trust the unfolding. You will be okay. Your desires on your heart are not wrong. They are there for a reason. Zoe, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'm glad we both got up off of the couch and made this happen.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. And yes, I'm cheering us on for just doing the damn thing.
Yes, and if you're listening right now and you happen to be sitting on your couch putting something off that you wanted to be doing, this is your sign. Get up and do the damn thing.
Yes, you'll feel better after.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.